Welcome back into the Week 9 recap show. And we're about to dive right into the Sunday slate action. So, what do you say we get right into it? First matchup, we had the Colts getting absolutely shellacked by the Patriots. It was just an abysmal showing from Indy, and it truly highlighted just how bad Sam Ehlinger is, where he's nothing special. He's not going to be an NFL QB, at least a starting caliber quarterback, and he nukes the receiving weapons. It was terrible. Do you remember earlier this season when Michael Pittman was a consensus top 12 wide receiver dynasty? Yeah, he's basically falling out of the top 24 with what's going on right now because you can't count on him. Oh, yeah, Alec Pierce, the trendy second round pick they took, dead as well. It's awful. Like, Pittman led the team with 3 receptions for 22 yards. Like, that's horrific. And I know they were going up against Patriots who have come a long way in improving their defense, but by golly, it was gross. Did you know that not a single Indianapolis Colt scored double-digit fantasy points today? It's just that's just next level bad. You can't even do anything. The Patriots defense was just dominant, and it allowed the offense to not really have to do anything. Just basically control the ball, don't turn it over to win. It was that simple. And Ramondre, the AKA Plotter, who's fantastic receiver. It's like the weirdest thing, right? Ramondre is actually a really good running back, but he's not athletic and not fast. Like, he's big, so he's like nimble, but he's just not an explosive athlete. So it's the strangest thing. But he's a good running back, and he put up 16 fantasy points. He was carried by that TD, but hey, touchdowns are what make it work, right? The King, aka King Kobe, Jacoby Myers. He only had 7 fantasy points, but it was a depressing day for the offense. Really, nothing else much happened. He still led the team in targets, reception. So Jacoby's doing what Jacoby does. He's a wide receiver too, and he's a damn good wide receiver too in fantasy. He's gonna keep doing what he's doing. They're really the 2 valuable pieces down the stretch for the Patriots. Like, you can't trust Mac Jones, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. Just like, there's not much else. It's highly dependent on those 2. So if you have those 2 on your team, you're happy. The rest of the Patriots is not. The Colts, on the other hand, it's strictly Jonathan Taylor. Outside of Jonathan Taylor, I don't even want a Colt this year. With Sam Ehlinger, and if he is going to be the start of the rest of the year with, I don't know how his performance leads you to believe he's going to be, but word out Indy is, so we're going to go under that. Like, you can't even trust Pittman. You can't trust Granson. They got rid of Hines, so when Taylor gets back, he's going to see a massive workload. It's not going to be great because that offense sucks. But, my piece of advice on Pittman would be to move off of him while he's still sold dynasty value, because he's very much going to get thrown into that tier of wide receivers that just don't matter fantasy-wise. So if you could move off of him to like an older running back or someone in a similar tier, like, I would happily do that right now, just because it's not looking great. And if it's not looking great for the young wide receiver, I would much rather pivot to someone that it is looking great for. Like, I would trade Pittman for Jacoby Myers plus. No problem. But that's just me. I love Jacoby. I know not everybody's probably on that wavelength, but that's where I'm at with it. In our second game on the slate, we had Detroit just within just a really just ugly win over the Packers. And the Packers have found a way to just make games ugly and just unwatchable, really. Which is a shame, because they have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Aaron Rodgers, but he's certainly not playing like it this year. They put up over 400 yards offense, but watching this game, you would have felt like they had about 250. It was awful. Rodgers had 3 interceptions, 2 in the red zone that just killed the offense, and they lost Aaron Jones today. He hurt his foot. It's kind of TBD. If he's out long term, go pick up Kylan Hill. But the only really producer was Allen Lazard. He put up 18 fantasy points. No one else hit double digits. A.J. Dillon he's unplayable. You can't play him. In redraft, I would just move off A.J. Dillon. It's not getting any better. Like, he was supposed to be the number 2 option on that team, and he's just been a disaster. Which is weird, because last year he was pretty efficient. This year, incredibly inefficient. And the offense in general it's just been a stink fest in Green Bay this year. And on the flip side, in Detroit, Swift, even in a severely limited role, he had 17% of the opportunities, still managed to get almost as many points as Jamal Williams, who had 25 touches, which highlights the differences in PPR scoring, right? Like, you have 25 touches, you expect to at least put up double-digit points. Jamal Williams did not. Swift, he put up like 2 points less than him on just a limited amount of touches. The concerning aspect for Swift is realistically he's going to be limited the rest of this year. He said himself that he's not 100%, so it's kind of troubling. But like Dynasty, still top 5 running back because the running back market is a disaster. Yeah, we saw like he almost scored on the exact play they scored last week. When they ran him outside, he cut it in the middle, tried to score. He missed it by like a yard or two. But, you saw even in that limited role, like, he's just points galore. So I wouldn't be too worried about Swift. Our boy, Amon-Ra St. Brown, was the target share king again, 34%. No big deal. It wasn't the best day for him, but if anyone is remotely nervous, go get Amon-Ra. Like, he hasn't put up points-wise, so if you have people who are chasing box score and stat sheets, like, go get Amon-Ra. He's still a top 12 guy rest of the year, which means he's a top 12 dynasty running back. So you know what to do with that. Overall, it was just not the best game. The next game on the slate, the Chargers somehow beat Atlanta. I don't know how they won this game because this offense, without its top 2 wide receivers, is pretty horrific. It's basically like distilled to basically Austin Eckler. Like, he's the entire offense. And like Austin Eckler's a stud, and that's great, but he desperately needs some help. He has had 5 consecutive 20-point games. Like, he's 100% that dude, and he's pushing for the RB1. He basically hit his total. I think he had 25 points today. Like, he was everything he'd asked for. Herbert, on the other hand, he's been kind of a bust. Hasn't been great for Herbert, but realistically, like, you see when Eckler leaves the field how depleted of talent the offense is. Like, they try to give it to Isaiah Spiller or Sony Michel. Yeah, he's nothing. It's just he's miles better than either of those back that they have on the roster. And I know Los Angeles wanted to rest Eckler, but they literally are struggling because they're trying to win. So you need Eckler on the field as much as possible. So it's kind of this weird dynamic, but Eckler's a stud. Don't gotta worry about him. No concerns. He's everything. The nice thing about this game was Josh Palmer was actually really good. He finished with 18 fantasy points, so bravo, Josh Palmer. Thank you for coming in, stepping in, being the wide receiver one we're needed in LA. Because I know everyone's like, oh, Palmer's not that good. I'm like, yeah, he's fine. He's a passable wide receiver 3 on the team. It's similar to Baltimore and Duvernay when guys who are not wide receiver 1 quality are thrust into that role. Like, it kind of makes the offense drop down a little bit just because you lose the efficiency that the top guys provide. But hey, if you're getting 18 points from Palmer each week, like, you're thrilled with that. Herbert's weird. So, like, in Dynasty, he's the ideal buy. Redraft, not really. Like, he's just not producing the way he was. The offense just isn't as good. And yeah, they're supposed to get Keenan Allen back, but we honestly don't know when he comes back. He's basically on the TBD. They said he's not going to come back till he's 100%, which he just re-injured his hamstring last week, or excuse me, during the bye week. So you're just kind of just a wait and see approach with him. If you can get him on Dynasty for like a late second or something, I'll happily do that as a contender. I made multiple moves like that to acquire him just because I'll get the points, let him just go away. As far as Mike Williams, like, that's a high ankle sprain. That thing's a nightmare. You don't know when he's coming back. So realistically, like, Palmer's he's gonna be the guy for a while. So if you have him, you can flex him. He'll be good. He might have some boom bust weeks, but if he's doing what he did today, like, it's one passable. Atlanta, we finally got our efficiency god back. You know who it is. Cordarrelle Patterson. He's just a touchdown machine. Like, that's what he does. Even in like limited work, it didn't even matter. Algier was actually the better running back today. He was explosive. He popped that big run, and he looked good doing it. But CPAP's the moneymaker. He's going to work his way back into the old role he is, so he's going to be the guy. I wouldn't worry about it too much. You just know what you're getting out of Cordarrelle Patterson. He's old, but he's still explosive. He's dynamic. And you see that the wide receiver like ability he has playing the running back position. So it was great to see that from him. I'm not too worried about it. The Falcons, like the rest of them, it's just I don't know what to do with them, man. Kyle Pitts and Drake London are freaking studs. They're 2 of the best players at their position. That's right, I said it. Like, at their position, they're incredible. But the situation just blows. They're not passing enough. Both of them put up a 30% target share, and it didn't even matter. Like, they give you useless fantasy points. It's beyond frustrating. The one thing that sucked for Pitts is he had a walk-in 73-yard touchdown, which would have made his day, but Mariota just missed him. So yeah, there's that. It's always like the hope with Kyle Pitts, and yeah, he's the dynasty tight end too. I had to move Andrews above him. Like I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, listen, like we're just not getting production. So at some point, like that's got to change. But like the outlying metrics show just how good Kyle Pitts is and what he's doing. Like it's elite stuff. So if you're someone who's skittish on Kyle Pitts, like go get him. Go get him in Dynasty. Redraft, obviously a different story. He's kind of hit or miss, but Dynasty, absolutely. Like it's a must buy. And the same thing with Drake London. Like people in fantasy are basically in the not for long mindset where it's like if you're not producing now, you're dead to me. So if you run into someone like that, go see if they'll get him Drake London. He's the guy you absolutely want on your team. He's freaking put up alpha target shares in his rookie year. And it's an awful situation. So if you can get either one of those two guys in Dynasty, please go do it. But this year, I'm not too thrilled with them in a redraft. So don't worry about it. You can go actually just chase points in a redraft. If you want to do that, it's much easier. The next matchup, it was an odd matchup. It was the Bills going down. They lost to the Jets, which is actually a pretty big surprise. Like I didn't expect that to happen. Josh Allen is so insane that in his worst performance of the year, which was today, he still gives you 24 fantasy points. He's the biggest difference maker in fantasy. Like no one tops the impact Josh Allen makes. It's incredible what he does. Like you cannot compete with Josh Allen. I know everyone's like, oh yeah, Lamar's on it. No. Even Mahomes. Like Mahomes is like he's the dicey QB2. Like it's not even close. Like it's those two. And then you have like, you have like Lamar, Kyler, you have whoever else you want. You can put Burrow there. It doesn't matter. Herbert is in there, but Herbert's been a disaster this year too. But realistically, like Josh Allen is the dynasty QB1. He's incredible. Like he's literally just the best. Diggs put up just 14 points, no big deal. Like it almost feels like a letdown from Diggs when he does that. But you take it. Like if that's the floor for Diggs, you're loving life, right? And then his partner in crime, Gabe Davis, Mr. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, showed us the Mr. Hyde this week. He had on that basically to play the end of the game. He had the ball bounce right off his chest. And I know people are saying there's pass interference, but you got to make that play. You're the big play threat. That's what they needed you for, and it didn't happen. So with Davis, you're getting that boom bust. Like that's who he is. That's gonna happen. He's gonna have some games where he goes for 30. He's gonna have some games where he goes for 6. Like you have to take that. This is like Tyler Lockett a couple years back, where super boom bust. You didn't know what you were getting, but when you started him, he was a difference maker. So that's what you're doing with Gabe. Like you're flexing him. You're chasing that upside. If it hits, you win your week. And if it doesn't, that's part of it. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. On the flip side, New York is all about Garrett Wilson. With the loss of Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson's coming into his own, and he's bodied Elijah Moore into just the nether realm. Like I love Elijah Moore, but he's just like I don't know what's going on with him. You can't trust him. It's just been a disaster. But thankfully, we have Garrett Wilson. He's the guy. And there's no Corey Davis this week. So Garrett Wilson was on the field all of the freaking time. And he's a stud. So he's another rookie wide receiver who is making the 22 class look really good. And he's doing all you want. Like that's ideal. If you have him on your team, bravo, write it out. You can try and go get him. The price is insanely high in Dynasty. I don't even know if it's worth paying it, but you could always ask. The redraft, he's much more attainable. If someone's still lower on him because he's a rookie, go send an older guy, flip him, flip somebody with some more name cachet who's going to put up some more points, so you make that work. The backfield without Breece Hall, very much a timeshare. It was split down the middle. They each found the end zone today, so both Carter and James Robinson put those RB2 numbers up. That's going to be similar to what it is. It's nothing to really be excited about. Like there's the RB2 guys, if they're splitting work, it's kind of like whatever because the offense isn't that great. So those are fine. They're possible. You can play them. But you're going to have weeks if they don't score a touchdown, like one of them misses out on it, or if they both of them score a touchdown where it's not so great. But the nice thing about Zach Wilson was he limited the mistake plays, those turnovers, and that's why they won today. Like, for instance, last week he did not do that, and he looked terrible. So Zach Wilson has a very long ways to go, and I don't really think he's going to be a quality NFL quarterback. Like, still waiting to see it. Maybe we see it for a long time, but you know what? Jets are looking pretty good early on, so he's got the perfect setup around him. So if he's going to do it, it's going to be with this team. But overall, it was a good game for the Jets. Next matchup, Minnesota they found a way to win. They hung around, and Washington could not finally just chop the head off. They couldn't do it. The snake hung around, and our boy Kirko Cousins. I'm sure y'all saw the video of him on the tee playing, just the shirt off, the shades, and glasses, just acting a fool, looking full on Kirko mode. So, bravo, Kirk Cousins. That they're 7-1, baby. You can't be too mad about it. The sad part for Washington is the game highlights just the issues Taylor Heineke has. Like, he's not a good quarterback, and it bites them in the butt because, like, they have a ton of talent, right? Like, you have Terry, you have, like, even Logan Thomas, disaster. You have Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson, John Dotson when he plays, like, Curtis Samuel, stud. Like, that's a good group of players, but Heineke's just not that good. And he will go, like, Brett Favre mode. He will gunsling it, but you see the lack of talent and just the lack of arm ability. So it sucks to see. The huge pocket positive was TJ Hawkinson. He was the surprise winner of the game. He had 9 targets, 9 receptions, 70 yards. He come in and he just took the number 2 slot from Thielen in his first game. Like, that was, I don't know, that might have been more, let's say how they planned it out, but I did not see that coming. So that was big time. Now that he's actually in a good offense, maybe there's something there for Hawkinson. He's tight end 5 on the week. We need tight ends desperately. So if we get that from him, more power to it. Cook, money catch in the end zone. That saved his day. So that was nice to see. Jefferson, just like freaking Justin Jefferson. He's just on his own tier. Like, in 1 QB leagues, he is the 101. It's not even a question. He just put up 7 receptions, 13 targets, 150 yards, a tutty. Just no big deal. Like, it's just so casual for him. It's remarkable how good that guy is. An offensive scheme and what they're letting him do, like, he's cooking. So it's great to see. For Washington, Samuel outscored McLaurin once again. So Curtis Samuel, he's thriving, man. I know people are like, why would you pay up for Curtis Samuel? If you freaking set a second round pick for Curtis Samuel and he's doing what he's doing for you this year, like, you're very happy in Dynasty. If you have him, flex him. He's freaking startable. He's doing very good. He is pushing Terry McLaurin each week for points. Like, it's no sure thing with McLaurin, which sucks because you see the talent he has, but it's just not coming together. For the running back room, just gross. I remember McKissick goes out, right? So he's out for the week. So it's like Gibby week, right? And Antonio Gibson gets all the receptions. Gonna take the job from Brian Robinson. Take it back. That did not happen. It's literally split down the middle. And the offense it's just not that great with Heineke. So they wash each other out. So I know the fantasy community is like, oh, you go on Twitter, it's like, oh my God, Antonio Gibson's such a better running back. Doesn't freaking matter if the coaching staff does not believe that. And I don't know what he did, if he threatened Ron Rivera's like family, if he's got some information that he did something. Like, I don't know what he did behind the scenes, but something obviously happened. They do not trust him. They don't want him. Like, they're gonna play him obviously because he's a freaking explosive player and they need that. But yeah, that's why they took Brian Robinson. That's why they brought back J.D. McKissick. Like, it's not gonna happen for Antonio Gibson. And it was funny, like, I posted this last week. It's somebody because he had a good game last week. People were like, oh, is it happening? And I'm like, no, that's just one game. People pop off for one game. We'll see it for an extended stretch. Oh yeah, guess what happened? It did not happen. So, like, realistically, you're going to have a hard time starting either running back moving forward. Maybe when Carson Wentz comes back, the offense raise up a little bit. You get a little bit more. But, like, right now, they're just borderline RB3s. Can't really start either one just because you know what's going to happen. So, it kind of sucks. Our next game was just bonanzas. The Bengals just routed the Panthers behind just Joe Mixon's historic day. Now, he had not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5. 5 touchdowns. One of the greatest fantasy performances of all time. I think it's like top 20 of all time PPR. This is like bonanza stuff. 55 points. Like, you take that car, you drive 55. Like, it makes me think of the fantasy footballers with bullshit. Like, 55. Yeah, that's how you're feeling with Joe Mixon today. It was just, if you had him on your team, you're loving life. The interesting thing about Mixon this year, he's third in expected points heading into the matchup today, right? And he cashed all of those unused points in because he was literally averaging about 20 points, like he was expected to average 20 points per game. He was hitting about 15. That's a monumental just drop from like what you're expected and what you're actually scoring. Most people are going to be similar, like they might be a point or two above, a point or two below. 5 points below, that's insanely bad. And this is the thing with Mixon. Like, he's not that good of a running back. He's good in fantasy because he gets the volume. This has always been my issue with Mixon, but when he hits like he did today, it's like, it's a thing of beauty. So I had him on one team in one of my redraft leagues, and I was like, thank you, Joe Mixon. But in Dynasty, like, I just don't want him. He's like, it's the weirdest thing. Because if that, the thing with Mixon is like, next year, if that role ever drops, there goes all the fantasy production, right? But, like, ride it out and enjoy it. If you're on Contender, you're like, heck yeah, Joe Mixon, let's go. Let's win this title. Outside of, like, it was crazy. Even Samaje Perine, he had double-digit points today. Like, they was just that good for the running backs in general. The Panthers just could not stop them. The defense was just atrocious, and the Panthers just looked awful. PJ Walker got benched, and yeah, it was just awful. So, like, even in the game where it was all Joe Mixon, Burrow still put up 20 fantasy points. And Higgins, he had 8 targets, 7 receptions, 60 yards. That's a solid PPR day there for Higgins. Like, not too bad for those two without scoring touchdowns, right? Carolina, they brought back Baker Mayfield, and they actually put up 15 points at half. Like, that's pretty respectable. And I know they were trailing heavily. It was like 35-0 in this game. So, pretty easy to score, but still, respectable game for him. I don't know what is going to happen. So, with the QB situation, who knows? Like, you just don't want the quarterback in Carolina, let's be honest. I know people were hyped for Walker for a second, but you saw Walker is not a starting caliber quarterback. Just issues all around. But hey, that led to Blackshear getting the leading team with 4 receptions, and yeah, it kind of killed Deontay Foreman. Like, everyone was like, oh yeah, it's going to be Foreman, right? And it was like, yeah, it should be a good game for Foreman. The game got so out of hand, it killed Foreman. Like, it just nuked him. So he sat on the bench basically, is what I started to do, and it was just a Blackshear performance. So he was solid. He had a good day at the office. DJ Moore, another disappointing game. It's so hit or miss with him. And that QB situation is awful. But hey, you know what? Terrace Marshall, back-to-back double-digit fantasy point games. Like, he ain't dead yet. And I was hyped for him as a rookie coming in. I left that train about 3 weeks into his rookie year just because it was so awful. But, he ain't dead yet. He's young. It's nice to see. They literally have nobody else in the receiving game. Like, who else is going to – it's like, there's literally nobody. So, if Marshall's going to do it, it's going to be this year. At least he's getting an opportunity. So, it's nice to see, right? Like, you always root for players who are left for dead, and then they come back, which I'm sure will happen if Sam Darnold gets the job again, because the quarterback room is so bad. Baker Mayfield's not the guy. PJ Walker's not the guy. They're probably going to go back to Darnold. Who knows what happens? It's just the Carolina situation is very similar to the Indy situation, which is very similar to the Washington situation, which it's a disaster. And they have these retread quarterbacks. It doesn't really matter. Not for long. And I know, like, Carson Wentz has that massive contract, but he's got to opt out. And it's not good for those teams. So they're trying to figure it all out. And in the meantime, kind of hurts all the players on the offenses. But, in Dynasty, like you always say, you want to buy talent. So DJ Moore saw his value rising quite a bit, right? And then it came crashing back down to earth. So, because Dynasty is such a volatile market, go look at Keep Trade Cut. You guys see up going down 100 points, up 500 points this week based on performances. So, if someone is skittish on DJM, go get him for cheap. Like, you might honestly probably not even cost you a first round pick because people are just going to be so frustrated with his lack of performances again. He's still young. He's a fantastic alpha. If he ever ends up, this is the Terry McLaurin thing, except he's younger than Terry McLaurin by a couple years. So this is the thing. You still have time to get in on the dynasty value where he's cheap. You know what you're buying into. And then if he ever hits, like, that's an elite ceiling. That's what you always want. That's true difference maker status. So go get him if you can. It would have been so nice if the Packers just somehow got him. Honestly, if they did actually offer Carolina a first round pick for him, I don't know what Carolina is doing. Like, you're just wasting DJ Moore. You'll get that pick. You can always restock, rebuild. Like, they obviously need answers, right? So, but no, they're just going to invest in DJ Moore with no quarterback. So yeah, I don't know what Carolina's doing. But yeah, it's just like, you could sell high on Taylor Marshall if you wanted to, quote unquote, like sell high, But if you just want to write him out, just write him out, like, and see where it goes. As far as the big winners, it's Mixon. Like, his opportunity share was top 5 going into the game. He's only chasing Saquon, Jacobs, CNC, and Henry. Like, that's the thing with Mixon. So, you know what you're buying into, right? He's going to get it this year. It's not going to change. P. Ryan sucks. They don't trust Chris Evans. Like, it's his job. And this is the same thing with Jacobs. Like, they're going to give him the work. He's good enough that he's far better than anything else they have on the roster. So it's going to stay. So, contenders, like, they're ideal. Outside of that, I don't want to touch these guys because they're older. They're on the second contract. It's not what you want to do. But if you need somebody for a push, Mixon's a guy that is not going to cost a lot. Like, people do not like Mixon. So, he's a cheap ad. And if you just want the points and not focus on the name, he's a good one to get. Yeah. So, the next one up, somehow Vegas blew a freaking 17-point league. I don't know how I've done it. That's 3 times this year. It's just like Josh McDaniels sucks as a coach. Pretty evident, right? Like, there were some tweets where Devontae Adams was letting out his frustration, which makes sense because you go from the Packers where all you know is winning, and then you go to the Raiders and you're just like, what is going on here? We're a disaster. I know McDaniels is a good offensive coordinator, puts people in great positions to win, but as a head coach, clearly not it. His career record is awful. He tanked the Broncos. He left Indy in the weird situation he did, and he is struggling tremendously with the Raiders. So, yeah, it's likely a first strike and you're out for McDaniels because this situation is just going up in flames. But hey, Devontae Adams is a freaking stud. Like, he's elite. I know he's getting older, but he's still elite. It doesn't matter. You know what he did today? He freaking had 17 targets, 47% target share. That's freaking insane. Like, people don't do that stuff. It's just like, I remember when he was getting faded by Hunter Renfrow because, increased competition. Yeah, it turns out Renfro's just like a dude. Like, he's fine, but Adams is here. Renfrow way down here. Yeah, so he finished the game with 10 receptions, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just a monster. 36 points. He's a beast. People who faded Adams this year, very, very big mistake, and they are regretting it. But for today's game, outside of Adams, it wasn't great. Jacobs barely got over 11 fantasy points on 20 opportunities. Like, that's a lot of opportunities that he did not produce. Derek Carr was respectable. Thank you to Devontae Adams. But other than that, it was just awful for Vegas. Like, nobody else did anything. In Jacksonville, it was Travis Etienne, Christian Kirk. Etienne had 30 opportunities. That is monster. Like, that's an insane workload. Players don't get 30 opportunities. Like, and he put up 126 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, I officially moved him ahead of DeAndre Swift in my dynasty rankings because, yeah, one player is getting a massive workload and actually, like, they are featuring him. Detroit with Swift, his injury concerns, whatever it is, like, they are not giving him the workload. So he's never going to hit the ceiling where you actually have a chance to hit that, like, elite ceiling with Travis Etienne. So, yeah, I'm going to chase that ceiling. Like, they're the same age. Swift has injury concerns. Travis Etienne has that major injury he had in the foot, but he's balling out with it. So, like, I know people are, like, and I actually agree Swift's a better overall running back, but yeah, you can use his name cachet. I sent him for trade up for CMC on a team that I have a contender. The other team is kind of like middling rebuild. We'll see what happens, but, like, I'll happily just pivot off Swift. Like, he's still a top 5 running back for me, but it's just frustrating. It's kind of like Taylor. Like, you could realistically just flip those 2 assets. It'd be the same thing. Both of them are not in the best situation. And so, like, their ceilings are capped because Taylor's offense is terrible and Swift just isn't seeing that elite workload that we want. So Swift is basically like a younger Alvin Kamara and a worse offense. That's how it kind of works out. And yeah, he doesn't hit the same quiet ceiling that Kamara did. And he's obviously not as talented as Kamara. Like, he's just all-time, like, stud running back. Swift's very good. He's very good. The only downfall for Swift is he doesn't have the explosion, and he can't just, like, break 70-yard house calls like he's been tackled from behind, stuff like that, because he doesn't have the long end speed. but he's dynamic as hell. He's a damn good running back. So yeah, I still like him a lot, but this year with the injury concerns, he even said himself that he's not going to be 100% for the rest of the year. It's kind of a red flag, right? Like that's not what you want to hear. And today, it's more of the same. Jamal Williams just taking more opportunities for him. It's super frustrating, but back to Travis Etienne. Don't worry about it. He's a stud. Lock him in. He's top 5 running back dynasty, top 12 running back this year. You love to see it. He's an elite dynasty asset. Yeah. Note on Adams. He's fantastic. Like, I know people are going to fade him for age, but if you're a contender, just go send a first round pick for Adams. As long as it's not like a top 4 pick this year, like, I don't really care. I did a deal 5 minutes before kickoff because we were talking about this deal for a while. I sent Gabe Davis and a 23 mid to late first round pick. Not my first round pick. Somebody else's. For Devontae Adams and Rondale Moore in a 10-team league. And why I do that in a 10-team league is because studs are more important. You're more dependent on those elite players because there's less people playing. There's more impactful players on each team, so you want them. The studs are more important. So, like, I will pay that price for someone like Devontae Adams because it's more important. So now I have him and Tyreek on my team, and like Garrett Wilson, DK Metcalf. Like, it's 10-team leagues, right? Like, teams are stacked that way. But yeah, I sent Gabe Davis in that first round, so I was happy to do it. Yeah, if you're looking for cheap production though, you can go to Christian Kirk. He had a hell of a day. Christian Kirk with a 29% target share, 8 receptions, 76-yard touchdown. Like, he's very good wide receiver too. Like, kind of like a lower end wide receiver too. But he can have his days like today where he's money, feature part of the offense. You know what you're doing. Like, those are the 2 assets you really want. It's Kirk, it's Etienne. I want it to happen for T-Law. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we saw a little bonus, little Mr. Sunshine. Like, I always think of Sunshine from I don't remember the Titans. Like, that's what I think about I see T-Law. But he had 6 rushing attempts, 53 yards. Like, if he does that every week, like, that's a nice boost, and that's how he's ever going to hit that fantasy ceiling if he's ever going to hit it. He's the clear QB2 from the rookie class. Like, Fields is doing stuff that it's elite of elites. But Etienne, Lawrence has been kind of hit or miss. But he's showing the good signs, what you want to see. He's locked in Jacksonville, and he has good assets around him. Oh, yeah, guess what? And he gets Calvin Ridley next year. So, might be a good time to go invest in Mr. Trevor Lawrence in Dynasty because you're going to be happy. I know it's been kind of up or down. Whatever, man. I ain't worried about it. Great time to do it. If you have Kyler, maybe see if you can get him for like a first added on. Not a bad deal, right? You paid off Kyler. But yeah, you could send a second for Christian Kirk. It's no big deal. Like, somebody will likely take that unless they're contending. If they want more than that, you can move on to a cheaper asset, like someone like Darnell Mooney or what we're going to talk about next. But yeah, in basically the offensive fireworks game of the week, Miami held off Chicago 35-32, and it was the Justin Fields show. He was incredible. It was Justin Fields show against the Holy Trinity of Miami, Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle. And those 3 were just a little bit too much for Fields. Fields did all he could, but again, Tyreek and Waddle, 76% of the receiving yards and 50% of targets. That's an insane concentration of targets. Like, the offense literally revolves around those 2. And if you have offense like that, that's how you get 2 top 12 wide receivers. And like, currently, check this out. So Tua is the QB7 through this week with 19 points per game. He's supporting Tyreek Hill, the wide receiver 3, who is at 23 points per game. And he's also supporting the wide receiver 10, Jalen Waddle, who's at 18 points per game. So you have a QB1 supporting 2 wide receiver 1s. Like, it's the perfect recipe. It's so concentrated, it doesn't matter. Like, I know people are like, oh, but he's a wide receiver 2. It literally doesn't matter. Like, he's a top 10 wide receiver right now, and he's balling out. Like, those dudes are just elite. Like, you can't guard them. They are elite assets. So, you have them on your team, you're thrilled. The bigger and actually more worrying surprise was Jeff Wilson deciding today, hey, Raheem Mostert, I'm here. Do you remember me? Back from San Francisco? Yeah, I'm here, dude. So, yeah, it's going to be tough because they literally split the backfield in his week 1 showing up. So, you're going to be struggling. Like, I know a lot of contenders were sending out 3s for Raheem Mostert and stuff like that, but yeah, it's going to be kind of iffy. So, you're going to have to kind of play it by ear and see how it goes out. But if you have Jeff Wilson or Raheem Mostert and you're starting them, No, there could be games where one of them just hits and the other does not. Because it's not going to be like today they both kind of did, but it's just it can be trouble. So that's kind of like a red flag that's going to go for that situation. As good as it looked, this was the concern when they brought Jeff Wilson. It's like, hopefully snag Jeff Wilson on waivers, because this was what we were talking about. It's like, yeah, maybe it could happen like that. For freaking Chicago, it was the Justin Fields show. He set the all-time quarterback rushing record, 178 yards. He passed Michael Vick. Yeah, Michael Vick, one of the greatest, if not the greatest rushing quarterback of all time. Yeah, he passed that record, he said. And he put up 42 fantasy points today. Justin Fields went bananas. He's been a QB1 5 straight weeks in a row. Like, that's just insane. And he was the QB1 this week, not just a QB1. He was the QB1. And the running backs, Fields took over, so they just didn't do anything. Montgomery, Herbert, they were just no-shows. Like, I mean, it makes sense when you have Fields doing what he's doing. You're going to feed him and keep going to him. So why wouldn't you, right? The crazy thing about Fields, after 4 straight weeks of being a QB1, right, he still only rostered 68% of sleeper leagues on redraft. I don't know what the hell he's got to do for you people, but I'm assuming this is what did it. Like, oh my God, Fields is like, yeah, he's been showing it for 4 straight weeks. So he's been in the waiver wire article for 2 straight weeks. I was just like, yo, dude, Just Fields on ESPN, his percentage is way low. He's below 50. If he's below 50, he's going to be the number 1 ad for anybody for quarterback. It's going to be alarm bells going for Justin Fields because you're seeing what he could do. And yeah, like, it's actually pretty impressive. Like, there was like no passing in this game. Fields barely, if I know, let me look at it correctly so I can find it. So he had 123 yards passing in the game, and he still somehow supported multiple assets. I don't know how he pulled it off. It was mainly touchdowns, but Darnell Mooney had 17 fantasy points. Cole Kmet had 22 fantasy points, so maybe Cole Kmet's back from the dead, but it was heavily on touchdowns. It was 2 touchdowns. Mooney led the offense in targets, receptions, all that. Mooney's still the wide receiver 1 there. What was nice to see is what Claypool did to the offense. So they've had 1 NFL-capable wide receiver. Claypool actually gives them a 2nd NFL wide receiver, who's like NFL quality. Like when Equinemius St. Brown, N'Keal Harry, those dudes ain't it. We've seen what they are. They're just bodies, right? So that's a massive upgrade in it. And it like makes sense in NFL terms why they traded for Claypool, and this is why. He opens up the offense and he allows them to do more of what they want to do. And I know what you're thinking, like, Claypool, oh, they got robbed. It was a 2nd round pick. No, man, like, you're investing in Justin Fields, which is what we critique Chicago for the whole year. Like, what the hell are you guys doing? Why aren't you investing in Fields? You're making these bad picks. Like, you selected Velus freaking Jones in the 3rd round. Like, just disaster picks, right? And they did not bring in wide receiver free agency. They finally got N'Keal Harry. They kind of I think what Chicago realized is, oh, they screwed up. So they started, like, targeting guys. Like, okay, let's get N'Keal Harry for cheap. And then they're like, all right, screw it. Let's actually get a quality, capable NFL wide receiver. And Claypool solid. He was averaging 17% target share in Pittsburgh. Like, that's competing with Deontay. That's competing with Freiermuth. That's competing with George Pickens. Like, that's solid. Like, he's a good wide receiver. And, he's well worth a flyer. So, this offense has evolved in Chicago to the point where Fields looks great. The offense is, like, respectable. Now they actually have assets they can count on, right? So, it's nice to see. So, Chicago looks promising. So, as much as I was like, ooh, the Chicago situation is terrible, shows what we don't know on the outside looking in. There's a lot of stuff we can't predict. Big miss on this. And there were so many people that gave up on Fields. Like, I was one of them too. I was like, I just don't think it's going to come together because the first 4 weeks were an absolute disaster. But he's learned a new system, figured it out. We should have been more patient with him. That's on us. But, I'm happy. Like, he was my QB1 coming out last year, and this is why. You see what he could do on fantasy. Like, he's a freaking stud. So, yeah, this is all about Justin Fields. And on, like, the Miami side, it's just the trinity of those 3. Like, Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, all studs. It was so nice to see for offense. Like, what we love in fantasy. Like, ideal game. That was beautiful. Next up, my Seahawks, folks. They are the real deal. Once again, you can't stop Geno Smith. And really, this game wasn't even that close. Like, the Cardinals are just disaster. Seahawks controlled this game. And Geno Smith, Hyper efficient as always. If you're looking for a cheap QB2 and Superflex, go get Geno Smith. I sent a second round pick, like an early second round pick for him on a contender because I freaking had Matt Ryan, and I was like, I can't trust Matt Ryan. So I went and targeted the guy who was rebuilding. He had Geno Smith. I was like, perfect, let's do this dance. And it worked out. He actually outscored Kyler in fantasy today, 21-19. In Seattle, they smashed them in yards, 421 to 262. Like, that's just drastic difference. Like, you saw Seattle's offense look good. They knew what they were doing. They were complete, which I was so wrong about. I don't think I could have been more wrong about the situation. My projection was that they would finish between 5 and 7 wins on the year, like 5 on the low end, 7 on the high end. Guess what? They're already at 6. Ooh, big miss by me. But as a Seahawks fan, I'm happy to hear it. I'm harder on the Seahawks because they're the hometown squad. But man, Kenneth Walker looks great. He put up 27 fantasy points today. Just so good. It's nice to see. He's stepped into that role. And he's just been a beast. Oh yeah, he led the backfield in targets. Shocker, Kenneth Walker can actually catch the ball. Weird, I know, right? Oh, but yeah. Lockett and Metcalf just doing their thing. Like, they are still one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. Lockett's just, he's forever just undervalued. Like, I don't know what else this guy needs to do. He's a stud. If you have Lockett, you're very happy. And then, oh yeah, by the way, Metcalf in his prime. Metcalf, beast mode, right? So you have those two. And then guess what? Even Noah Fant, the forgotten and left for dead Noah Fant. He had 5 receptions for 96 yards a day. Put up 14 fantasy points. So bravo. On the Arizona side, Rondale Moore and Zach Ertz were the two that revolved around. Rondale had 10 targets, 8 receptions for 69 yards. Zach Ertz had 8 targets, 5 receptions, 41 yards, touchdown. I don't know why D-Hop was not as involved. I would be curious to check the saddle coverage because I wasn't paying as much attention to that game as all the other games. But when it was on, D-Hop was just not a focal point of the offense. He even caught an early touchdown. He was involved. And then they just did not involve him. And I would like to see how much he was matched up with Tariq Woolen, if that was what it was. Because Woolen's a stud, dude. Like, he's looking the part of a damn good NFL quarterback. So that might have had something to do with it. But, yeah, it was kind of surprising. I thought this is going to be another D-Hop week. It was not. So it's kind of weird. Like, he's very good. I know this is just one game, but maybe he's not going to be competing for, like, the wide receiver or top 5 wide receiver, I thought. My expectation for him is, like, a lower end wide receiver 1, higher end wide receiver 2. Rondale Moore, lower end wide receiver 2, higher end wide receiver 3. But that's productive assets. Oh, yeah, Zach Ertz. By the way, top 12 tight end. Like, this team is not very good. So they're going to be in these game scripts where Kyler's going to have to keep creating magic. It's going to lead to boom plays. Like, it's not going to be bad for the assets. Like, the defense isn't good at all. And you saw that Seattle was dominant offensively. And yeah, like, it's nothing wrong with it. But it'll be interesting to see when Hollywood comes back, if he does come back for the regular season, how that's going to impact Rondale, but it just improves the entire offense. So this is why I'm super bullish on Kyler, though, because you have Hollywood, you have DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore, you have Zach Ertz. Oh, yeah, and guess who I've been waiting? Trey McBride, the top tight end from last year. So, like, that's a ton of assets. And this is under the assumption that Arizona re-signs Hollywood. I don't know why they let him go. They paid a first-round pick for him. They're going to re-sign him, right? So then you have those two. You have the slot guy, Rondale Moore. You have Tyler. Like, that's really quality weapons all the way around. But the volume's going to be there to support the assets. So in the meantime, while Hollywood is out, wheels up for Rondale, wheels up for D-Hop. It's going to be a fun show. The last one was really one of the uglier games on the slate. The offenses just couldn't keep up with the defenses. The Bucs outlasted the Rams, and it just felt like the Buccaneers used all 9 of their lives in this game because the Rams just couldn't kill them. They kept trying, and they just couldn't. Like, they just couldn't cut the head off the snake. They couldn't do it. They missed. They kept missing. And they just keep giving Brady all these chances. They're like, at some point, Brady's going to find a way to do it. And of course, what did he do? The GOAT shit. He came down. One of the last plays of the game. Touchdown pass, K. Dotton. Bucks win, right? It's that simple sometimes. But for fantasy perspective, it's Cooper Kupp. Just 26 fantasy points. 33% target share. No big deal. Just ho-hum, whatever. Like, he was the high-end producer in this game. Outside of him, it was K. Dotton who had 17 fantasy points because he had that touchdown late. Nobody else had over 12.3 fantasy points. So There was nothing good in this game besides that. The worrying sign, like let me rephrase that. The most concerning sign for me is like what Rachaad White is doing to Leonard Fournette, because that Buccaneers offense has been nowhere near as good. Like they've drastically regressed this year. One of my predictions was that Tom Brady would outproduce Joe Burrow this year. Woo, baby, that's a big L on my part. Ooh, big one. But Rachaad White is slowly earning more and more work. Like Fournette only got 53% opportunities here today. Like that's not good. That's well below the season average. He was in the 70s. And the last couple weeks, it's been coming down as Rachaad White's been getting more involved in this offense. It's not looking good. Like, this offense not being as good as it was last year, it's even worse. So that's like, he's losing two factors from last year that he had going for him, where he was an incredible running back in fantasy, where it's just like bringing him down and down and down. So, like, realistically, I would try to move him if you could. I would try to get out. Like, I in Dynasty specifically, like, he's very treacherous. You can ride him if you want as a contender, but no, like his value is already in the tank. It's going to be even worse going into next year. Like if this is legit like a timeshare, like a split, which pretty much was today, like it's not good for Fournette. And on the flip side, the Rams backfield situation, stay the F away. You don't want either one. It was ugly. Like there's nobody to trust. Like the Akers. God awful didn't do anything. Malcolm Brown still sucks, right? And it's like, yeah, they gave it to Darrell Henderson. He wasn't anything special. So it's just like, God, the Rams missed those Todd Gurley days so bad. They thought they had it in Akers, but there's something seriously wrong with Akers behind the scenes. I don't know what's going on, but they're not getting along. It's been a disaster. The one thing I would take away is Kyren Williams. Go stash Kyren Williams who's available. Like, there was a lot of reports of him coming out with how much of a disaster this backfield is. I know Sean McVay is going to be looking for somebody to do something in the backfield. That's why Ronnie Rivers was the guy last week. Like he led the team in touches last week. So if you have him, go stash Kyren Williams. Like you never know what can happen on these backfields, and the Rams are just a disaster. So I don't want any of the running backs. A single running back in LA, like you can't count on them. You can't trust them. So basically, it's Kyren or it's nobody. Our last Sunday night matchup. KC came back, same thing. Like they hung around forever. This game was actually kind of crazy because Tennessee got out to the lead and they had to hold it. But realistically, like you asked Malik Willis to do nothing. Like, look at the difference in freaking passing attempts. Patrick Mahomes had 68, right? Malik Willis had 16, which is mind-blowingly dumb. Like, yeah, this was incredibly frustrating to watch because Tennessee's defense dominated. They put pressure on Mahomes, made him super uncomfortable all game, and like they held him well. They didn't score, and guess what Tennessee's doing? Playing the super conservative, like trying to win on the narrow margins offense, which is so terrible because you get in these situations, which exactly happened in Tennessee. You win for 56 minutes of 60, right? There's 4 minutes left in the game, and what are you counting on? You're counting on your defense to stop Mahomes one more time. And it's like, why put yourself in a situation where you could be aggressive for once and try to win the game instead of playing not to lose, play to win. And Derrick Henry got off to a great start. He had 17 carries for 115 yards. Like, he was a beast in this game. It's just so weird. Obviously, they don't trust Malik Willis, and it's pretty clear. Like, if you look at the timeline today on like any of the social media apps, go look at Malik Willis early in the game, and then go look at Malik Willis end of the game. People were loving Willis, and they were hating him. And it's like, yeah, dude, he's a third-round pick. He wasn't ready. He's clearly not ready. He's got a long ways to go. So I know everyone was like excited. They're like, oh, the Konami upside. It's like, dude, there is like a lot of red flags with Willis. Like, and maybe it could happen, but realistically, like he could never start again once Tannehill gets the job back. And I know what you're thinking, like, oh, it's Malik Willis. No, like Tannehill gets that job back. He's clearly superior, but it's just weird. You think they would maximize the assets of like Willis's skill set, and they really didn't. It was just the strangest thing. But yeah, so no surprise. You let Casey hang around. Guess what happens? Mahomes passes for 446 yards. It's like you give him enough opportunity. It's like, man, what do you expect to happen? Like, I don't understand it. For Kansas City running backs, like an absolute just disaster of a show. Oh yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Oh yeah, 4 carries, 5 yards, two targets. 1 reception. Oh, gross. Jerick McKinnon was the guy in passing. He had 8 receptions. Or sorry, he had 8 targets, 6 receptions. Like, that's the PPR. That's how we got double digits. Oh, Isaiah Pacheco was taken over early. He had 5 carries. It's just a disaster. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he was everyone's biggest, like, sell high because this is what people worried about. Like, he's just not that good of a running back. And KC made a horrible decision drafting him around 1. They're paying the consequences of that, where they're literally just stuck with him, and you have to try to fit him to make him work. But it's clear they obviously don't like him. So yeah, as good as the offense is and as good as scheming in, you still need the talent, and that's what they're searching on. So Pacheco, he's slowly earning more of a role, but it's just a disaster. Nobody's gonna produce. Hardman had a big play. The Titans wide receivers is the bonkers thing I ever seen. Like, they didn't have a catch. Not a single wide receiver had a catch for the Titans. Oh my god, it's so bad. Like, Willis only completed 5 passes, right? So you think maybe wide receiver? No, not a single wide receiver caught a pass. Mind blowing. And unless Robert Woods completely cooked, which very possibly could be, but like, he's had some decently productive games. So I don't think it's necessarily that. Like, he's obviously not the player he was, but my goodness, what the heck, man? Not a single catch for a wide receiver. And meanwhile, down here, Juju had 12 targets. Freaking, oh yeah, Kelsey was 17 targets. Like, those dudes were heavily involved. So yeah, Juju, Kelsey, once again. Hardman blowing up. MBS, not so much this time. Kadarius Toney, he saw the field a little bit. He had 2 receptions, but yeah, you could see KC is desperately trying to replace what they lost in Tyreek Hill, and you see Tyreek Hill in Miami and how good he is, where it's not just the Miami scheme, right? And there was even a tweet where Tyreek Hill when they did one of the plays, he goes, "Hey, I remember that play," like, joking about it. So you see, like, everyone knows, like, what Kansas City's trying to do. That's what they did when they bring in Toney. They're trying to replace Tyreek Hill because they traded him away, and they got a friggin' haul. Like, and the thing is, they didn't want to play him, and I get it, but the offense is not the same without Tyreek Hill. Don't let anybody fool you. Mahomes is still a stud. Like, let's be real. 68 passing attempts. He completed 43 of them. Monster fantasy game. 35 fantasy points. No big deal. But realistically, it's the same as it always is. It's Kelsey. It's Juju. That's kind of sprinkled around the other guys. Hardman had 9 targets. Like, that's pretty impressive today. So, yeah, that's that. And it was just a super frustrating game. Like, I don't get why teams, when you're going against Patrick Mahomes, right, why you play conservative. It's the most frustrating. You know how good a quarterback he is. It's him and Josh Allen. Nobody else compares. Get out of here with Tua. Like, I don't care about any of that crap. He is literally one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And, like, what he's done is just incredible. And it's like, coaches are like, you know what? We're going to hold the ball. We're not going to go for it here. We're going to punt in this situation. It's like, stop playing conservative. It bites you in the ass because Mahomes is so good. So it's just super frustrating. But, that's going to wrap it up for week 9. We got 1 game left tomorrow. Should be fun. Isaiah Likely. Oh, the chosen one with Baltimore. But realistically, it's Lamar Jackson. It's, Kamara. Probably have Drake. Duvernay's the wide receiver 1. Chris Olave. Maybe a little Landry. But it should be fun. Who knows? Maybe Taysom Hill shows up again. But as always, folks, thank you for checking in the Week 9 recap. I appreciate you joining me. Go follow me on Twitter. Enjoy my content through there. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one.